Getting started with Omnipod Discover Insights. Managing diabetes isn't just a once-in-a-while task. It's a daily commitment. While healthcare providers have the training and tools to interpret your data during clinic visits, those appointments only happen every few months. That's why understanding your own data, like time in range, insulin usage, and glucose trends, can be so powerful. Omnipod Discover can help identify weekly patterns and trends to help you learn more about your day-to-day diabetes management. Let's look at what Omnipod Discover gives you. When logged into Omnipod Discover, you'll see an overview that includes your weekly summary, Omnipod 5 progress, and patterns found. You can swipe through the summary to see additional information. If you want to dive deeper into the insulin usage or the patterns found, you can tap to view more detail. If you want to access the same report your healthcare provider can view, you can download the Omnipod Discover report by going to the menu and tapping Download Physician Report. Let's take a closer look at the summary. Swipe to view days in range, weekly time in range, and time in range trend. Days in range show how many days during the week your glucose stayed within the target range of 70 to 180 milligrams per deciliter or 3.9 to 10 millimoles per liter. You'll see a green box for any day where your glucose was in range at least 70% of the time. This matches the recommendation for the International Consensus Statement on the time in range. If your glucose was in range less than 70% of the time, you'll see a gray box instead. When you look at the days you met your time in range goal, you can learn what you did on those days that help keep your glucose in a healthy range. The weekly time in range insight breaks down your glucose levels into 3 groups: low, target range, and high. These groups match how healthcare providers look at glucose. The time in range trend compares your current week to the one before. If your time in range has improved, you'll see an upward arrow along with the percentage change. If it has decreased, a downward arrow in percentage will appear. Looking at this week compared to last, we can begin to identify patterns. Was last week more stressful? Were you traveling or experiencing changes in routine? To recap, the summary cards are to give you a high-level view of your time in range over the week and compare it to the previous week. Moving beyond the summary, you'll see Omnipod 5 progress. If there is enough data from the week, you'll see the insulin usage insights. This insight will highlight the percentage of insulin used as basal versus bolus. When tapping on View Details, you can get a detailed breakdown of your weekly trend, total daily insulin ratio, average daily bolus, and factors to consider. Viewing this complete set of insulin information helps you see how your bolus ratio and average bolus per day may be affecting your time in range. Bolus insulin is the insulin you take to cover meals or bring down high glucose levels, so understanding how often and how much you're dosing can give you clues about your glucose patterns. By looking at this trend, you can start to see how your dosing habits affect your glucose results. For example, if your time in range is improving, it might mean your bolus timing or amounts are working well. If your time in range is decreasing, it could be a sign to talk with your healthcare provider about whether your doses could be changed or timed differently. It can help you have conversations with your healthcare provider and make small changes that lead to better outcomes and keep doing what's working well. To recap, the Omnipod 5 progress section gives you a deeper look at your insulin use for the week. If there's enough data, you'll see insulin usage insights showing how much insulin was used as basal versus bolus. Continuing through the weekly insights, you'll come across a section called Patterns Found. A pattern is something that happens the same way more than once. This could be your glucose is often high or low around the same time or in the same situation, like after meals or before bed. In this section, we focus on 2 types of patterns: time of day patterns and after bolus patterns. A time of day pattern means your glucose is often high or low around the same time on different days, like if you're usually low before lunch or high in the evening. The system will highlight the days in which this pattern was identified. An after bolus pattern calls attention to what happens to your glucose after you take insulin for meals or corrections. For example, if your glucose often goes high after bolusing for dinner, the system might show that as a pattern. These patterns help you and your care team understand what's happening and where you might need support. If you want to learn more about a specific pattern, just tap View Details. Let's take a closer look at this after bolus highs as an example. Here, you'll see the events that make up the pattern. Factors to consider are simple questions that help you think about what might be causing the pattern. You might see questions like, did you take less insulin than usual? Has your routine or activity level changed recently? These questions help you reflect on your choices and give you clues about why your glucose might be going high or low after a bolus. Want to dive deeper? Tap on any event to see more details. On the details screen, you'll see your glucose trend and insulin delivery before, during, and after the high. Yellow highlights show when glucose was high. A black bolus icon means insulin was given. Tap it to learn more. At the bottom of the screen, you'll find info about your mode, insulin, and pod usage. This section illustrates what state your Omnipod 5 was in during the event. You can tap Hide Legend if you don't want to see the mode legend. By checking your weekly summary, Omnipod 5 progress, and patterns found, you can learn more about your glucose, insulin use, and what's working well. The more you understand your data, the easier it is to talk with your healthcare provider and make decisions together.